This is Mark Parham, the host of the Cat Builder Talk radio show with the Cat Builder interview. This interview is from the show entitled The Business of Rebuilding Our Community, and my guest star, JANIS MATHIS, the Executive Director of Rainbow Push Coalition for the Southeast, and Calvin VISMALE of VA Capital. Thanks for listening.
Setting the stage for our conversation tonight. Even though we're going to be talking about rebuilding the community, I found something I wanted to talk about. Because we're talking about the Push Tech 2020 conference, I want to talk about the importance of technology in economic and social development. Now, mobile technology offers help with various forms of social and economic development. And technological innovation and information communication technology represent a way for developing world nations to foster economic development, improve levels of education and training, as well as address gender issues within society. Now, entrepreneurship is crucial for economic development around the world. In some countries, micro-entrepreneurs generate 38% or more of the gross domestic product. An analysis from the World Bank indicates that small businesses create a new share of jobs, they generate new ideas, new business models, and new ways of selling goods and services. Wireless technology and infrastructure development is also vital for entrepreneurship and small business development, because it's important that we all pay attention to it, because in emerging nations, it's a major challenge to gain access to capital and market information. A basic form of technology, such as a simple mobile phone, has proved that people communicate with one another, access market information, sell products across geographic areas, reach new consumers, just all kind of things. But in short, mobile technology offers extensive help on various forms of social and economic development. With mobile phones and tablets growing at a significant rate, these communication tools enable women, disadvantaged other individuals to access a broader range of investors, suppliers, and customers. So with that said, I want to introduce our guest for the night, because I brought up the technology because they have a technology conference coming up, but the real deal is introducing them about helping us rebuild our community. And I want to introduce first a veteran of the airwaves, Miss JANIS MATHIS. How you doing this evening?
Mark, I'm doing just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. And
can
my
you hear
next
me fine?
guest,
yeah,
I can hear you fine. My next guest is Calvin VISMALE. Calvin, how you doing?
Mark, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you again for all the good work that you're doing on the airwaves, bringing the truth and bringing the information to the people. And I'm really proud to be here with JANIS MATHIS.
Yeah. So since we're both here with JANIS MATHIS, and she is a veteran of the airwaves, Ms. JANIS, as I start my show and I bring people on, I like them to, do their network speech where they go to network events, stand up and talk about who they are, what they do. So you have the mic. We want to know who JANIS is, and we'll get into talking about you and the work that you're doing in the community.
Well, I'm privileged to be able to do work that I enjoy. Sometimes I say that the best job in the world is one that you would do for free. I don't do it quite for free, but I do it out of a sense of responsibility and loyalty and love. I am Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition for the Southeast. And in that role, I basically do three things. We try to empower youth. We try to help grow the economy in our neighborhoods. And we try to engage voters. So just about everything I do can drop into one of those three buckets. I've been doing it for a long time. This is my 16th Creating Opportunity Conference coming up. Time flies when you're having fun. And it's coming up in just about 3 weeks, so we're very delighted to be here to talk about it. But people sometimes want to separate politics from economics. And you'll find people who say, it's all about voting. We got to make sure we hold elected officials accountable. And other people will say, fully on voting, it doesn't matter who's in office. They're all the same anyway. And we need to focus on civil rights and not civil rights. And I say to you that we got to walk and chew chewing gum at the same time, because there is a symbiotic relationship between voting and politics and economic clout. And so we have to do both. And Rainbow attempts to do both. And we throw in a final critical element, which is it's really all about the children. If we don't leave them prepared, then nothing much else that we do matters.
You're absolutely correct. That's all I was excited to have the ladies on before, helping these kids learn how to speak. But let's talk about this. Let's step back from the Rainbow Push. Let's talk about Miss Janice Mathis. You've ever heard about you for years and years and years. So let's talk about who you are, how you got started and all this.
The feeling is mutual. I'm a small-town Southern girl, grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, very devoted parents, a lot of church, a lot of civic activities. I can remember my mother campaigning for Jack Kennedy in 1960, and I was just old enough to go with her. And, of course, we had to keep it a secret from Daddy because he thought because Kennedy was Catholic, the Pope would be dictating his politics. And the fact that I understood that at around age 4 or 5 tells you what kind of family it was. Wow. Even though we were in Greenville, South Carolina, I don't remember when politics wasn't an issue. By the same token, we were in a what you might call a deprived neighborhood, but we spent a lot of time trying to empower our friends and neighbors and church members with job fairs. I remember one time Dad was on city council, and he just about got an ulcer trying to assure that there was minority participation in a new mall that was being built on the edge of town. Well, this is 1975 probably, and so not everybody was thinking that way. But that was sort of what we were thinking about, is that if you're going to build a new mall, well, then, of course, you want to have robust minority participation from the black contractors. So that's sort of the beginning of it. Went to school a long time, got a few degrees, got a chance to travel a little bit, ended up in Athens, which I love. I still live in Athens. I love Atlanta. I can live in a condo in Atlanta, but I can also live out in the country in Athens and have the best of both worlds.
I agree. So, I listened to you. So you've been at this for a long time, community development. I mean, age of 4. So tell me this, 1975, 2015. It doesn't seem like much has changed.
Well, a couple of things have changed a lot. In 1975, it was still acceptable in some quarters to consider yourself a racist.
Okay.
The 20th century civil rights movement did away with that. You see folk now running away from that terminology. Oh, I'm not a racist. In Alabama, they shut down all of those DMV offices in the majority black counties. And what was the first thing the governor said? That's not racist. That's not voter suppression. That's not racism. We did that to save money. In 1975, they wouldn't have bothered to cover up their motives.
Gotcha.
So some things have changed. But are we where we need to be? Of course not. Is there still racism that permeates our society? Of course there is. Do we have the access to capital that we deserve? Of course not. Is our education system robust and challenging so that children do their best and reach their best and highest potential? Absolutely not. Are we doing some things that are self-destructive still? There was raging drug problems in that era, right on through the 90s.
Right.
Drugs have sort of, they're still drugs now, but it's not the crack epidemic that it was in the 80s and the 90s. So some things are better. Our Supreme Court is probably worse. It is much more ideological. Remember a long time ago you used to hear the Supreme Court talk about activist judges? They don't even use that phrase anymore because they have become the activist judges. Remember you used to hear that all the time. These activist judges. Well, now they're the activist judges, so that's kind of gone out of style. And what effect does that have on our economic opportunity is the question. If you have CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, but it is not being enforced,
and
that
I
has
think
an
that's
effect.
The thing. A lot of times, I think a lot of times the enforcement of, just through the discussions I sat through with you at the Capitol, just listening to, there's a lot of laws on the books, but they're not being enforced. And So what do we have to do to try to get these things enforced? Just keep jumping up and down, or what are some of the things that the community can do to help?
Well, we have to be smart about it. We achieved a little victory, made a little progress at the legislature, and we're so grateful to you and Nancy and all the coalition that came together because when I say smart about it, there was a 500-page disparity study that showed that there was the availability of blacks to do business with the state of Georgia is 14%, but the utilization was around 1 or 2%. Unless you were willing to read 500 pages of that study, you might not have known that. So first we have to, like what the Bible says, study to show ourselves approved. If you're not willing to do the work, you won't have the tools that you need to fight with. So that's the first thing. You got to be smart about it. The other thing is you have to resist fighting each other long enough to work together to fight the real enemy.
Can you say that one more time?
It's easy to fight each other. You have to resist the urge to fight each other. Whether you call it crabs in the barrel or Stockholm Syndrome or Willie Lynch Syndrome, whatever you want to call it, you have to take your vitamins every morning and exercise and resist the urge to be hypercritical of each other and find ways to work together.
Wow.
It's just so important. Whether you're talking about business.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that if you look at our businesses, we got lots of businesses now. They are probably.
Yes, we do.
Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
There are probably 150 black lawyers practicing law in Atlanta. There's probably only 1 or 2 black law firms with more than 5 lawyers in the firm. Thomas Kennedy Sampson, Rod Edmonds, and C.K. Hoffler come to mind. Why is that? What is that about?
That's a great question. It's not working together.
What is it going to take for us to leverage not working together, not being able to trust each other enough, not being able, and our fellow Americans, as long as the dollars are green and they can draw up a contract that they can be reasonably confident in, they don't have to trust each other. They trust in their ability to pool their resources and make money. And part of it is because, go ahead.
One question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned education in our youth, how important that is. So what are the things that we need to do, and what are we doing in our society to try to solve that issue?
I have a lot of confidence in our youth. I think, for one thing, they do trust each other more. I think they are more collaborative in their spirit. I think they're more willing to pool their assets and resources and work together. I think that is their great strength. If you look at the hip-hop crowd, you'll see today one is a guest artist on another's project, or they'll get together 4 or 5 different acts and put on a concert together. They seem to be much more collaborative.
And they really look at it like that, but you're right.
They don't have as much sense of history as I think they're going to need. I think sometimes, even though, we talk about keeping it real, keeping it 100, if you don't know where your people have been, it's going to be harder for you to figure out where you need to go. And so I think it's our responsibility to give them some sense of how 1915 looks a lot like 2015, what things have not changed. This continuing assault on the right to vote, the continuing unlevel playing field when it comes to access to capital. You look at a thoroughfare in, say, off Panola Road, off I-20, and you look at a thoroughfare in Alpharetta. You can still have similar demographics, similar income, similar levels of education, but very dissimilar levels of investment. By institutional investment, I'm talking about insurance companies and banks and pension funds, where the big money comes from. when you see all those development on the northern tier of Atlanta, that doesn't come out of anybody's savings account. And Calvin knows that Calvin should be talking because he taught me this.
Well, actually,
and that money comes out of pension funds and insurance companies and banks.
You know, it's funny because I was going to move to that. Calvin, like right now we have this big issue in access to capital. You know, she just made a very good comment. Like, that's where that money comes from to build these things. So how do we get access to things like that? What do we have to do as a community to try to help grow ourselves using the same model that's proved successful for everyone else?
Well, I think one of the first things, it all goes back to education. We are, and I've said this before, we live in a political republic and an economic democracy. And what do I mean by that? We live in a society where we elect people to make decisions on our behalf. And that's our political landscape. On the economic side, however, we live in an economic democracy in which we cast our dollar votes every day, whether they're as consumers or as business owners or as fiduciaries or in whatever capacity and hats we may wear. So the extent to which we can educate ourselves about how money works and how we make better choices with the money that we have in our control. And what I'm really saying is access to our own capital is the number one step. JANIS hit on these developments in other communities are being financed by banks, insurance companies, and pension funds. Those are all what we call financial intermediaries, which means they're made up of an aggregation of individuals. Individuals contribute money to each one of those institutions. Banks from depositors, insurance companies from policyholders, and pension funds from pension plan participants or workers. So we have workers who are contributing to pension funds. We have depositors that are making deposits to banks. And we have policyholders who are paying premiums to insurance companies. And when we educate ourselves and demand of those intermediaries that they invest back into the communities from which they are getting their assets, I think that's a critical first step to understand that it is being invested.
So, I mean, we could probably have a whole show about this, but tell me this, so what do we just do? Go to the insurance company and say, hey, look, go to an investor meeting, or, I mean, we just let them take the money out of our check and put it in their fund. How do we even begin to have that discussion about where we want the money to go?
Excellent. And go ahead, Janice, because that segues.
I was just going to say, at Rainbow Push, I guess about a dozen years ago, we started to buy small blocks of shares in Fortune 500 companies, so that we could attend the annual shareholder meeting. The annual shareholder meeting is presided over by the chairman of the board of the corporation. All of the directors are there. Most of the senior vice presidents are there. There is always an opportunity for shareholders to raise questions before that group of leaders. We have been systematically over time attending those meetings and raising the questions of who are you employing? How are you assuring that the people you employ and the places you invest look like the people who consume your product? Over time, that has an effect. I can remember a dozen years ago, there were many. Atlanta's home to about 50, the metro area is home to about 50 Fortune 500 companies. There were about half of them didn't even have an African American on the board of directors, which is a very sensitive post. Now that number is down to about 10, and we're going to work on that final 10. So it's in those ways that you influence public policy. Did you notice today that Nathan Deal came out against the casinos being built in Georgia? So now you might think that casino building is a wholly economic activity, right? What does that have to do with voting? But here's your governor. No matter how you feel about casinos or how you feel about the lottery, how you feel about the fact that lottery-funded scholarships go to the wealthiest children and families in the state, but the people who play the lottery tend to be the least well-educated and the poorest. The blackest counties in Georgia have the highest lottery playing rates and the lowest Hope Scholarship rates.
Wow.
However you feel about that, that is a mixed question like Calvin was describing, not purely political, not purely economic, but a mixed question of politics and economics.
Wow. Man. I'll tell you, I mean, this is a great conversation, but I don't want to get past. I want to talk now about your event coming up. We got we got about 10 or 15 minutes left in the show, and I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about this thing you've been doing. You said 16 years in a row you've been doing this?
Yes, 16 years in a row.
Wow.
For opportunities to knock. That you say, make luck. You create opportunity. When you're black in America, you can wait for somebody to come and tell you and give you permission if you want to. You'll be retirement age sitting there waiting. So you have to be proactive. We kick off the conference on Thursday at Morehouse with a bunch of folks from Georgia Tech talking about innovation. I believe it's been demonstrated. What do we do for the kids? We've got 24, and Calvin's been working directly with them. 24 of our best and brightest, not all of them are black, most of them are, who have their own ideas about new technology businesses that they want to start. And we said, what can we do about it to catalyze them, to make them successful? What we can do about it is we've got $10,000 in prize money. Now, that's nothing. But the room is going to be full of people who have more money than we do. And they're pitching their business. And you're on that committee too, Mark. Thank you for being one of our organizing committee. What has that experience been like for you?
I mean, I tell you what, up to this point, just working with the other people on the committee, it's just been so refreshing. We have these conversations, it's going to be 30 minutes, and 30 minutes, but we get something done. It's just really been a refreshing experience. I can't wait to actually meet everyone when I come to the event. I
tell you what, that may be the smartest group of people that I've run into in a long time. Everybody on that committee is a star in their own right. So these young people have submitted their ideas, and they're great ideas. And they're going to pitch them. And they're going to get a chance to meet each other and meet some of the movers and shakers, including a guy named Sig Mosley, who I never heard of until Calvin told me who he was. But he's a real big deal in the world of venture capital.
Well, I want to say a couple quick things here. JANIS has been very modest tonight in a lot of ways. And what I would say is that JANIS, through the mechanism that she outlined of being an active shareholder, attending shareholder meetings, asking the right questions, and negotiating with senior management, and getting results. She and Reverend Jackson have gone into Silicon Valley and gotten the companies in Silicon Valley to release information on the level of diversity and inclusion, which they resisted until JANIS and Reverend showed up and asked those questions at shareholder meetings. And as a result, they were able to find a resonance with the CEO of Intel. And Janice, you may want to talk about that a little bit and what Intel has committed to do based on your activism and the resonance that you and Reverend found with him.
Jen?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
I'm here. Our keynote speaker on Friday morning, October 30th, is a woman named Roz Hudnell. And, Calvin, I want to thank you for those comments. It's very encouraging and very nice. And basically that's about what happened. Roz is now just found out that she's been promoted to be the president of the $1 billion Intel Foundation. She's an African-American woman. She's been with Intel for a long time. She and her boss, a guy named Krasanich, decided that they would take the challenge to become more diverse, serious as a heart attack, as we would say in the neighborhood, and they put up $300 million toward the effort.
Wow.
That is an unprecedented commitment to diversity. $300 million. Now, it's divided up. Some of it is to fund scholarships and to do things like this think tank pitch competition that we're doing on October 29th. Some of it will go directly into venture investments in not startup firms, but sort of middle stage firms that have got great ideas and show great potential for growth. And then some of it will be used to recruit at HBCUs and other places so that they can boost the representation among Intel's employees. They admit that they've been doing a lousy job of finding talent. And, you know, the funny thing about talent is everywhere. God put talent. He just had a whole bunch of talent, just threw it all over the earth. It went everywhere. But it is not all given the same opportunity to excel and to grow and to flourish. And we think at Rainbow that's the business that we're in. So Roz is going to speak to us Friday morning, and I can't wait to hear what she's got to say because she's been promoted into a very significant role. And we're also going to recognize some of our black entrepreneurs who've been helping us. If you don't know the name Cynthia Jones, our firm is Jones Worley. If you're not familiar with Pam Smith and Smith Real Estate Services, these are two sisters who've been laboring in the vineyard for a long time. They've got successful businesses, but they intend to grow them for the next generation. And so we're going to recognize their efforts along with Deb Scott from Georgia Stand Up. We wouldn't know anything about the Beltway or how average, everyday working people can access the benefits of it if it were not for Deb Scott and Georgia Stand Up. I tease her, I call her rallies are us. If you need to rally for a cause, all you got to do is talk. Deb got a built-in rally in her pocketbook. And so she's going to be recognized. And then we move in. You know, technology is not just in Silicon Valley. These who are moving to Atlanta, who have moved to Atlanta. And we were just talking about the move and how they made the move and what the move was going to do. And the guy explained to me, said, well, the last group to move will be the IT group. I said, really? That's interesting. He said, yeah, we can't shut that group down until everything is in place because that's the heart of our business.
Wow.
That's the heart of your business.
Wow.
And whether you're in Grady Hospital or you're doing inventory control for Macy's or you build in whatever they build out at Lockheed, IT, information technology, computer science, is now become the heart of every business. Can you remember when you didn't have to have a website?
No.
Can you remember when you didn't have to have an email address?
No. You gotta have one now. You cannot function.
I can remember, but it seemed like the dark old days, doesn't it? It seemed like the dark ages.
Right, it does. Right.
But it was probably, a decade ago? 12, 15, 20 years ago?
Man,
so we're going to do a session called
Go ahead.
We're doing a session called Technology Everywhere, and it's designed to help young people understand that it's not just the phone that's in your hand.
Right.
It's every time you go to the doctor. It's every time you go to get your car fixed. Technology is everywhere, which means those jobs are everywhere. And sometimes young people tell me, well, tell me, I don't know how to find it. I said, you got the Library of Congress in your hand. Don't tell me you can't find it. You can find it if you know how to use the device. It's in your hand.
Right. You got that right. You cannot.
Because
I think what's going to be really great for these young people to be able to witness these entrepreneurs that you're giving awards to or recognizing, to see these people, these young people, all being in the same room at the same time. That's going to be outstanding.
That's part of the magic, you know, is that you're going to be in there with the $300 million woman, with Pam Smith, who's got her own real estate firm. She runs it. Cynthia Jones does all kinds of marketing and signage. She did a lot of the signage that you see at the airport. And then later on in the day, C.D. Moody from Moody Construction. Moody is building the Dome right now. Moody built the center, the Ray Charles Performing Arts Center. He's going to be on the panel. Pandora is going to be there. It is star-studded. We've got 4 of the women. Would you believe that 4 of Coke's brands are marketed by African-American women?
Wow.
Kim Page markets Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, I had no idea. No idea.
Yeah. Shannon Watkins, Raquel Mason, LaVentura Robinson, and Kim Page essentially run the brands for North America for what you know as Coca-Cola. Sprite, Fanta, Powerade, Coca-Cola, and Diet Coke. The marketing is done by 4 African-American women. They're going to be there to talk about their jobs and what they do, along with representatives from Global Hue. One of the things that we worked on real hard over the last couple of years right here in Atlanta was to make sure as much Coca-Cola as we drink. You know, white folks don't drink carbonated sweet drinks anymore, for the most part.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And if we're going to drink it, we ought to be able to sell it and market it and display it and all the other things. And for a while, Coke didn't have what we call an ad agency of record that was minority owned, but they have recently, I'm proud to say, engaged Global Hue. Global Hue is based in Detroit, but they're one. You know, when people say we don't have any black business, that ain't quite true. We don't have mom and pop stores in the neighborhoods like we used to have, but we got some awesome black businesses.
Wow.
Global Hue is a huge global ad agency. And Don Coleman, who founded... You have to stop me because I just go on and on.
I know, that's because you're passionate about it. I even gave us a little more time just in case I couldn't stop you. So tell me this. How do we find out about this conference? What do we go to?
You go to pushtech2020.com. Pushtech2020. That's our target date. Pushtech2020.com. And I just want to say one final thing. Day before yesterday, we signed Kelly Price to sing at the gala. So you don't want to miss the Keep Hope Alive gala. Friday night.
All right. I'm going to come there as Cap Builder Talk. I think I'm going to cover this event because I want to interview some of these people because this story needs to be told.
Roger Bob will be there. Divine Stevens, Larry Tinsley, Bishop O.C. Allen, and my friend and the best preacher in America, Freddie Haynes, is going to deliver the message at lunchtime on Friday. The last time I heard him preach, he preached a sermon called "You Don't Have the Right to Remain Silent." And I'll let your imagination fill in the blanks.
All right. Well,
you know, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. Freddie Haynes said you do not have the right to remain silent.
That's right.
You black in America. Right. You got to say something.
Well, I tell you what, you said something tonight. You gave me so much information in the last 30 minutes. I've been writing stuff down. I'm going to get on Google University and go look some of this stuff up. But I want to thank you for what you do and how hard you work at it tirelessly. And I can't wait for this event to be there. Calvin, same thing, man. You guys you're really laying it down and really setting a high mark, particularly for these youth. I mean, they just have to know that they're in good hands when they're working with you.
Well, let me say this. Although it is a fundraiser, Mark, we are not charging for the workshops. The workshops we want people to be able to come to and not see money as a barrier. The dinner, the luncheons, there are fees for those. But the workshops, the information is free. PushTech2020.com. Come get the information. Don't wait for opportunities to knock. Chase it down.
Chase it down. You know what? Calvin, you got something else to say that can top that? We might need to end the show.
Well, all I can say is I am excited and I am proud to work with both of you. Mark, thank you for all that you do to get the word out to the community. And obviously, I'm very proud to work with JANIS MATHIS.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. We love you.
We love you, too. This has been a great show. I'm glad some of you hung in there a little bit longer than I normally go. But Cap Builder Talk, real talk with real people talking about real issues facing small business today and tomorrow. So Push Tech 2020 Summit, check it out. I'll be there trying to get the information and knowledge that I need to improve my life. So you listen to Mark Parham, Cap Builder Talk. I look forward to our next encounter.
Thank you for joining us this evening on the Cap Builder Talk radio show on the Survival Radio Network with your host, Mark E. Parham. Real talk with real people, talking about real issues facing small business today. We are here every Monday evening from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To be a guest or for more information, go to capbuildertalk.com. Please post comments on facebook.com/Cap Builder Network. We hope you enjoy this show.